Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Welcome back. Let's go ahead and continue.
Hmm? All the methods that the ego adopts to treat its own condition are known to prove ineffective, irrelevant, and generally exercises in self deception. And with time, the ego becomes a master at self deception. I don't feel well, I pop a pill. I don't feel well, I go and buy something. I don't feel well, I pick up the phone and indulge in gossip. I don't feel well, I offer myself some kind of distraction, some method to escape from my state. I'll proceed on a vacation.
It's almost sounding like it's also becoming a habit too, where this is something that you do anytime certain things trigger. It's like, oh, I'm not feeling well. I need to go do something.
I'll go and enjoy some kind of culinary or physical pleasure.
And what I mean by do something, I don't mean meditate. I mean like external stimuli. So in a sense, it's this habit of constant external stimuli to constantly attempt to cure what ails you.
Hmm? I'll not want to investigate into what really the problem is about. Hmm? So the usual relationship is a relationship of unconscious blindness, instinctive compulsiveness. I don't know what I want, yet I feel that I want something. So I just almost randomly pick up something. Hmm? If not randomly, then by looking at others. That is the logic, if such a thing can be called logic at all. Why are you according this kind of treatment to yourself? Huh? Because that's what everybody else is doing. Why do you binge shop on weekends? Because there's nothing else to do. Why are you taking this decision? Well, I don't know, but isn't it obvious? It's not obvious. Kindly explain. Why have you taken the decisions that you have? No, it's an absurd question. No, it's not an absurd question. Kindly explain. Uh, I don't mean to jettison common sense altogether. I stop this conversation here. Hmm? So all these things, all these tricks that the ego employs, common sense, obviousness, these are nothing but tropes to hide the lack of self awareness. Since we do not know what we are doing, therefore we hide behind these comfortable words. We say, well, what else? Yes, obviously. Huh? Those things. That's wrong relationship. Any relationship that is formed without knowing who is the one entering that relationship and for what reason is a wrong relationship. The mind is typically an aggregation of the fruits of our wrong relationships. Hope we understand the word relationship. Relationship does not just mean the thing that happens between a man and a woman as is usually taken. I buy mobile phone, that's a relationship. I buy a new shirt, that's a relationship. Go to watch a movie, that's a relationship. Hmm? What does the paint on that wall mean to me? That's a relationship. Hmm? There's the pet that I have, that's a relationship. I have memories from the past, that's a relationship. I have hopes for the future. That's a relationship. So typically, the mind is full of wrong relationships because the one forming relationships has no self knowledge, but it has a lot of unease. Hmm? like 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 a man with his body on fire. His capacity to clearly think, clearly see, has been paralyzed. He's on fire. But he's experiencing extreme pain. That's the condition of the ego. It experiences but does not know. So, what will the man do? The man will just run about with all the energy possible in any given direction. We very well know that when buildings are on fire, people often jump from the 7th floor, 10th floor, 60th floor. When the WTC was hit, 9/11, one of the frames that has become tragically immortalized is that of a man jumping to his death from one of the burning towers. What else can be done? The mind has lost its capacity to understand. The ego rarely understands, but it feels. It feels. And in the rush of that feeling, it forms relationships. I'm off. The mood is bad. What do I do? Well, give me something spicy to eat. Offer me a few drinks. It's far easier than venturing into oneself and investigating why exactly is the mood off. That seems like an easier option, to just drown oneself in a few drinks. So a relationship is formed. Now this relationship is not the right relationship. Therefore, the Upanishad is saying that the mind itself is the cause of bondage. We start with bondages, and if we do not know that we are in bondage, then every new bonding that we enter into is actually a new bondage. Bonding is relationship, right? What we call as bonding is actually bondage. Please understand. The initial state, the state we start with as we are born, is that of ignorance. We do not know who we are. Look at the helpless state of a newborn. What does it know? It only feels. What does it understand? It only has instincts. And from that state, we can either proceed towards understanding, which is liberation, or we could simply operate from the state of bondage itself and consequently deepen the bondage. If we form wrong relationships, then the state of bondage is deepened. What is a right relationship then? A right relationship is a product of self reflection and self knowledge. I am seeing what ails me. Therefore, I am seeing what is it that I must connect to, relate to, what is it that I must bring into my life, and what is it that I must expunge from my life. That's right relationship. Right relationship is a product of self knowledge. Therefore, when we say that the mind is the cause of bondage and liberation, what we are saying actually is that self knowledge is the cause of liberation and lack of self knowledge is the cause of bondage. That's how the whole shlok translates. That's Upanishadic wisdom. If you know who you are, you will become much, much better than who you are. Knowing is radical transformation. Whereas without knowing, it does not matter how much you strive for change, the change will remain superficial. If without striving for change, without desiring for change, you just know what your situation is like, you will find that radical change is happening by itself. That's the approach of Vedanta. Know and be liberated. Not do and be liberated. No. Know and be liberated. You see, in the Bhagavad Gita, it's a beautiful thing. Chapter 1 is about the travails of Arjuna. He's in a miserable state. Chapter 1 captures that. Then chapter 2 is about knowing, Sankhya Yoga, which is the way of knowledge, knowing. Chapter 3 is Karma Yoga, action. The message cannot be missed. If you know, action follows. Chapter 3 follows chapter 2. Right action can come only from understanding. If you understand, right action becomes inevitable. You don't need to think about it. Understanding is sufficient. You cannot understand and not act rightly. If you understand, right action will just spontaneously happen. That's Vedanta. If you understand, right relationships will get formed. You don't have to strive for the right relationships. But you do have to strive for something. Please understand, if you are in the maze of wrong relationship, then the wrong relationship itself becomes a barrier against understanding. That's where dedicated effort is needed. If I have surrounded myself with all kinds of intoxicating objects, that environment will prevent me from self-observation.
Now that I 100% agree. This is something that you can kind of see. I mean, the obvious is, of course, people who I don't know if it's intentional or not, but you kind of have people who are surrounded by criminals, whether it's intentional or not. But then they get sucked into this, and then they're surrounded by it, and then they accept that path because it's the only path they know, but they don't try to get out of it. Then there are a few people who see that and say, that's not the path I want, and they actively avoid that path and make their lives a lot better by escaping that trap or the maze, and actively striving to be better by avoiding the maze and striving for something that may be difficult but is a better path, as opposed to taking the easy route and falling into the maze that or this or let's call it falling into the trap that is tempting and easy and pleasurable but not correct.
This is where I'll need to put in effort. That brings us to another aspect of Vedanta. The approach of Vedanta, step by step, is of negation. Negation. Right things, well, they need not be done. Right things will happen on their own. There is something that does need to be done. What is it? Stopping the wrong things. The approach is of negation, classically called as neti neti. Stop all the nonsense. Then the right flowers will bloom by themselves. Clear the clutter, and in that pure space, something beautiful will happen on its own. Don't have to create beauty. You have to just clear the ugliness. That's Vedanta. Beauty is not man-made. Beauty is not something that the ego can create. But there is something indeed that the ego can do, which is to get rid of ugliness. Getting rid of the wrong relationship is the way of Vedanta. Get rid of nonsense and be patient with the virtuous emptiness that is created. Fall in love with that aloneness. In that aloneness, the virtue of liberation blooms. You see, that aloneness looks terrifying only to the one who is currently in wrong relationship. If you say aloneness is a terrible thing, Vedanta will again shoot back the same question. To whom? Aloneness is terrible. Well, to whom? To the one who has become accustomed to crutches, mental crutches. You get rid of mental crutches, aloneness is beautiful. And in that aloneness, you get the power, the authority, the capability to strike right relationships. Only when you are comfortable with your aloneness can right relationship happen. One who is not all right with himself can never be all right with 5 or 10 other objects, irrespective of the number and nature of objects. Your task is not to find the right one. Your task is to get rid of the wrong ones. There is nothing called the right one. If at all there is somebody called the right one, it is nobody else but you. You have to become the right one. And who is the right one? The one who has shown the guts and the gumption to get rid of the wrong ones. Get rid of the wrong ones, you yourself are the right one. Then you don't have to wait for an external right one. You are the right one. That's Vedanta. Aham Brahmasmi. You are the right one. No right one will come from any external place. If you are right, you are right. If you are wrong, no right one can salvage. Getting it? When it is said, man eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayo, what is said is actually know yourself, know thyself. That's the central message. When you know yourself, you know what's blocking you. You look at yourself and all you find is a clutter of needless objects. Get rid of those objects. Get rid of those objects and remain peacefully in your Kaivalya, in that pristine aloneness. That pristine aloneness in Vedanta is known by the great and final name of Atman, great self, Atma. Atma, which is truth. Vedanta is quite counterintuitive. That's the reason there is so much importance of that little ave. Ave excludes all that we are instinctively drawn to. We think the cause of bondage is situation. No, it's not the situation. The one in bondage is the cause of the bondage. Nothing outside of you is the cause of your inner situation. Things that are external to the body, that is, can only affect the body. You are not your body. You cannot be affected by anything except that which you choose to be affected by. And why do we choose to be affected by something? We think it would be a profitable deal to get affected. Something is tempting me. I decide to yield to the temptation, decide to get affected. Why? Because there has been some inner calculation that says, if you yield to the temptation, you will benefit. So it's not the thing that I have yielded to. I have yielded to my own inner calculation. So Vedanta is trying to exclude that thing from having any power over you. Vedanta is saying, no, that thing has no power at all. You are the master of your fate. You are the owner of your life. Irrespective of what the world is doing to your physical existence, you can still be ruler within. And that's how one has to live. Otherwise, there is no point in living. Living is then a miserable exercise.
And I agree with that, because if external things constantly shifts or changes your life or perspective, you are forever in chaos, because tomorrow, who knows what that brings to your life and how your life will be affected by it. You are, in a sense, a slave to external stimuli. There is no consistency, because whatever consistency happens externally will be consistent with you, and not you yourself will be consistent. So in a sense that the world itself is, in a sense, chaos. And if that chaos world affects you, then you yourself will be in chaos as well. Which is suffering, obviously. If the world is suffering, you are suffering. If there's any kind of inconvenience whatsoever, that is suffering. So you shouldn't be looking for external things to make you happy. And understand who you are, and not that you're not your emotions, you're not your thoughts, you're not your body. And strangely enough, it's a lot of identity politics going on in the United States, and they suffer so much because people have to accept their identity, or they suffer. And I know some of them wants to mandate their identity, so that if you don't recognize their identity, you will be put in jail for it. I'm sure that is a very, very tiny group, but it is something that has grown over time. And I'm sure this has existed through most of human history, but it's becoming worse, and it's growing. It's really sad. They only value themselves based on external factors. And that's the only way to get validation.
Internally, one must have his, her own kingdom. As for the outside, well, nobody can determine or predict that. Anything can happen anytime. An earthquake can strike right now. Even as we know, even as we talk, we do not know how many of us might be having diseases slowly developing within our bodies. All that is external. Not only is the world external, even this body is external. One has no control over that. One must have control over oneself. I cannot determine all the things that will happen to me, but I can determine how I will respond to anything that happens. And I can also determine whether or not I will respond. And I can determine that in the middle of all that is happening to me, I will remain the unaffected, silent, peaceful monarch, being all the dignity and all the assurance. That's the approach of Vedanta. Manev manusyanam karanam bandha mokshayo. Do not blame the world. Do not play the victim. Do not think that situations can mean anything to you beyond a point.
Do not play the victim. Wow. Wow. You. Man. A phrase that should not be powerful at all is so powerful. The sad truth of the matter is that it is so easy to play the victim. It's so easy to be a victim. To say that you have no control over your life. To say that everyone is holding you down and blaming the world for all your problems. Because, for one, you don't know who you are, and two, you hold no responsibility. You actively choose not to have a responsibility. It makes me wonder now that should we start taking responsibility for our actions, would that bring us closer to knowing who we are? I'm not saying it's the guaranteed path, but it is probably part of the path. When you can take responsibility for your actions, your emotions, I genuinely believe that will bring you closer to knowing who you are. And just what I mean by knowing who you are is at least being able to, how do I say, stop playing the victim, taking responsibility, and by that degree, you can stop suffering to some degree, because if you take responsibility, you have control over what you are responsible for. And it's a little bit of controlling, in a sense, your body. Because obviously you have control over your actions. You have control over your life. You have control over your body. Now, you don't obviously have 100% control over the diseases that happens in your body, but the actions that you take, you have control over.
Own up responsibility.
I'm going to rewind that.
Anything to you beyond a point. Own up.
Own up.
Responsibility.
Responsibility.
Accept the driver's seat. Your own life. Don't allow the drift to carry you away.
Victim.
Vedanta is the philosophy of total empowerment. Aham Brahmasmi. I am the highest that there can be. And as long as I am not that, I'll keep striving by the way of negation, by the way of niti niti. I'll keep dropping everything that keeps me down. Hmm? There is no power outside of me that can have any say over my absolute sovereignty. Aham Brahmasmi. I am the one and I am the only one. When it comes to the body and the physical existence, obviously there are limits, and I understand those limits. I respect those limits. I'm not stupid enough to quarrel with that. When it comes to the one that I am, the I must be unconditionally free. The I is not born unconditionally free. The way for I to gain that unconditional freedom is through self knowledge. I'll keep observing myself, I'll watch my tendencies, I'll see how the body operates, I'll see what is commonly called as the thoughts and the feelings, how they arise and fall. Watch all those things, and that's called self knowledge. Observing myself, I come to know who I am, and from that knowledge, all that is needless is dropped. Once the needless is dropped, find that there is freedom.
I am grateful for the opportunity.
Okay, I will stop it right there. Um, so yeah, interesting. I mean, I guess he did say in at the end there about, in fact, about being responsible for your action, responsible for your body, and responsible for your emotions. And again, repeating that the fact that obviously you don't have 100% control of your body. Your body does have limitation. Your body may have diseases that you don't know about, but you are still 100% in control of your body. So be responsible for it. If you need to seek a doctor, seek a doctor. You know, whatever it may be. But to say to say that don't be a victim. It's really sad to think of that as something powerful. When in when in today's day, and I mean, I think of America, and I watch this YouTube videos about certain debates and stuff, and it's kind of sad that I hear from some of my comments that this is also happening in India. Now, mind you, I'm pretty sure these are probably happening in densely populated areas. Let me know college campuses as well. I mean, it's happening in United States college campuses. I am so glad I'm done with college, and also in densely populated areas. So easy to play the victim and blame everyone else but yourself for the problems that occur to you. Because you don't have to take responsibility for anything. Like, it's not my fault. That's so easy. If you apply for a job and they get that a job, it's like, oh, it's not my fault. Clearly the person that was trying to hire me is racist. Clearly, if they're a different sex, then they're sexist as well. You know, instead of taking responsibility, as in maybe your resume wasn't good enough, maybe you were a bit combative when you were doing the interview. Maybe you didn't answer the questions correctly during the interview, or just maybe you're not the right person for the job. Although I will say there's a weird thing about being overqualified. It's like, I don't care, just hire me. Dang it, I need a job. I'm more qualified. That's great. That benefits you more than me. But yes, and in the weirdest thing though, I see this mostly from white people. They are really weird. But I was gonna get somewhere with that one. But anyways, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was gonna get with that is the fact that you do see a lot of minority groups of people and plus immigrants who come to the United States and live a great life. Now, mind you, they're not making millions of dollars. They have enough money to save, not necessarily enough to go vacation all the time, but to an American standard, that is poor. That is terrible. But what Americans don't understand is the fact that having a roof over your head, having clean water and food to eat is paradise to a lot of people who come from foreign countries. But to Americans, that's a low standard of living. Having a roof, clean water, and food, bare minimum. Now, don't get me wrong. It'd be nice if you could make a lot of money. It'd be nice if you can go on vacation all the time. But I think that's a very high expectation. And don't get me wrong, working all the time, working yourself to death and all that, it sounds terrible. But the thing is, though, is that if you look at it, well, I don't want to look at it in Advaita Vedanta's perspective yet, but if you look at it just from a practical perspective, that you have a better life than what you had previously, especially if you're an immigrant from a underdeveloped country, that yeah, I'm working, but I'm eating good. I don't have to worry about much. I pay my bills, and the practical things that I have a family that I'm providing. So me working like this, I am very happy. Because my work, my effort is I'm investing into my family that is making me happy and proud. And in America, no, there's no the family's kind of broken. Uh, there's no proudship, I guess, into your work. You have to be CEO or whatever to be proud of your job. Having a job alone is not proud work anymore. But a lot of immigrants who come over here, they work themselves, provide a nice living for their children. The children have now a comfortable life, are able to do better than their parents. That is success, but not to Americans. I watch this lady from North Korea who escaped, and it's quite terrible the things she said about what happens to North Korean defectors that ends up in China, and it's kind of weird to say that there there's prejudice against them in South Korea. It's kind of weird, but she felt very welcome. Most North Korean defectors that come to America are very astounded of how friendly people are in America. Which, to me, I am very happy that Americans so far seem friendly because obviously in the news you just hear terrible stuff. Why am I talking about this stuff? I'm just rambling. Anyways, it's just I guess it's the fact that again not the victim part and the fact that people should really learn to appreciate the things that they have. Don't get me wrong, I think you should always strive for better, and I think we should push things to be better in our country. Now, what I'm saying here should apply to every country. We should push for greatness. Whatever country you're from, we hope that we can push our country to greatness. And eventually, the world. But again, a lot of I like to the way I like to speak is more of a general term, not necessarily too specific, but specific at times. You'll know when I'm being very specific, and hopefully you'll know whenever I talk about things like in America that I generally speak about this in all countries too. Because if it's happening in your country, clearly it needs to be done in your country too. Needs to be done. I guess that's a different statement, but hopefully that we kind of like I said. I hope that America improves. I hope America becomes friendly. I hope everyone wants to come to America, but at the same time, I hope every country strives to be that way. Then we're competing to be the best country in the world, all of us. and then eventually, hopefully, all countries are so freaking fantastic that it's like, well, I don't know, all the countries are great. There's no crime. There's no, I don't know, victimhood mentality going on. But that's going to be impossible, so prepare yourself for that, I guess. Anyways, that's the end of my reaction to Mine Alone is Bondage and Liberation. If you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up, thumbs down, down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.